have your father from home. You can choose.
Well, and it's also formation. It's bad formation. Like they weren't, and that goes to sex education because they weren't taught.
Right.
They weren't taught about, it's not about sex education. It's about relationship education. How do I relate?
Okay, this is too good.
Sorry.
Are we good? This is is going to be such a good podcast. I'm so excited for this. Yes.
Okay.
I'm really excited about this. Okay, so ready to roll?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, guys, we are rolling into another episode of the Candace Owens Show, and we are talking about sex. Yes, now I have your attention. Are we an over-sexualized culture? Are we not sexualized enough? Here to discuss all things sex with me, Lila Rose. Welcome to the Candace Owens Show.
Thank you, Candace.
I had to jump the gun there because we were having this off-camera conversation. It's all really exciting. I know that you do a lot of work in talking about abortion and the harms that abortion brings, but then Marissa told me you also talk about chastity. Yeah. And I was instantly like, oh my goodness, I have to have her on the show. Not because I have an opinion on it, but because I almost don't have an opinion on it and I want to work through it.
I think you do. I think you do have an opinion.
I think
but
I
you
do.
maybe just haven't, we'll talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So did you remain a virgin until you were married?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. Yep. And that was a decision. And my fiance, when we were engaged and dating, that he completely respected it and was on board because the value was sex is something so amazing. It wasn't that sex is bad, we're going to get rid of it. It was that sex is something so good, so bonding. Sex has the potential to bring life into the world, right?
Right.
And so we want to protect this incredible bond, this experience that we believe is not just physical, but spiritual. I mean, the research shows that it's more than just a physical experience. It's emotional, it's psychological, it's the most bonding thing you can do with another person.
Right.
And so why would you just do that with someone you're going to walk away from?
That's true.
You want to do that with your family, with your spouse,
now,
with someone that you
was
can
he
raise
a
a child
virgin
with.
when you met him?
So he could tell his own story. I mean, I think he, maybe had made other decisions in his life, but ultimately he wanted to recommit to that because
that's important though. That people need to hear that.
Before meeting me, the years before meeting me, it was a recommitment he wanted to make because he realized that's not the lifestyle that he wanted to live, where he wanted to save that for his future wife, and that's something a lot of people today, they think, oh, I've already had sex. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal anymore, but it is a big deal. It is a huge deal. And it doesn't matter what you've done in the past. It matters what you're going to do in the future. And I think you can think about it this way. When you're having sex with someone or you're dating someone, it doesn't even matter even before that. This is someone's future spouse. This could be someone's future wife or husband. So you want to treat them with respect. You don't own them. They don't own you.
Right.
So you want to treat them with that respect.
So I have to ask you and I are the same age. And so we kind of grew up in the same climate socially, I would say. It's okay. We're both 30. We're really old women here.
We're old.
Yeah. And what was that like for
20.
you growing up and deciding that you were going to commit yourself to God? Because I can only imagine in the climate that I grew up in, you're kind of considered the weird person if you're not sexualized.
Yeah. People were, when it would come, it's not like I went around saying, I'm a virgin, but when it would somehow randomly occasionally come up in conversation, people were usually shocked. Like, how can you be 29 years old and, still not have had sex? And I think that that's a complete confusion that our culture has right now. The confusion of our culture says that it's actually normal to have sex when you're really young. Studies show, the research shows that actually early sexual activity doesn't lead to good outcomes later down the line. It actually delayed sexual activity leads to better outcomes down the line.
And what do you mean in terms of outcomes?
Outcomes meaning your relationship happiness, your economic happiness, physical health because of STIs, the potential for a pregnancy when you're not prepared for it. Right. So I think that, first of all, that's just the social data on that. But from a spiritual perspective, if we think sex is just an act you do, right? And all that matters is consent. It's all about consent today, right? All you need to do is consent and then you're good, right?
Right.
That's the Me Too movement. As long as there's consent, that's good. We need consent, but consent is not enough. Sex should be about love. It should be about commitment. It should be about responsibility. And it is built to be about children. And it's only because we sterilize it. I mean, we use women. Think about it. All these women our age and younger are taking birth control pills. They're being told you need to sterilize yourself. You need to shut down your hormones in order to be sexually available to men. I mean, that's what that message is.
Right. No, it's actually really funny that you talk about that and why my wheel started turning in my head when you started talking about chastity, because I remember just being so young and no matter what you had, and this always freaked me out. So I was really staunchly against birth control pills by myself, came up with that conclusion all by myself.
Yeah, it's very dangerous for our health.
It's dangerous, but the way that they promote it is what turned me off to it immediately. So it was sort of like, you turn 12, you go to the doctor, you say you have a pimple. They're like, birth control pills.
Right.
Go to the doctor, you say you have a headache.
They don't look at the underlying problems.
Birth control pills. You could say anything, and they say birth control pills help. And at a very young age, I was very suspicious of that.
Good.
And I swear, and I said, I don't know why every time I have any ailment, you keep telling me this birth control pill is going to fix it, but just it's a no from me. It's a hard no from me. But it is interesting because when you learn about all of these topics regarding sex, whether that's abortion, whether it's about having sex, you learn about it in a very weird way in health class, which is almost like, yes, of course you should be having sex. And by the way, if you get pregnant, you should just
have an abortion.
Have an abortion. And they don't tell you anything about what it means to, like, what a fetus is, what it looks like, nothing. It is just, you are a responsible individual if you have an abortion, if you're not married, because this child is going to have a horrible, toxic life. And the best thing you can do as a young person is to have an abortion. So what is that sexual education doing?
Yeah, it's sexual miseducation. So Planned Parenthood is behind this. They do the most abortions, and they're one of the #1 sex educators. So they're getting grants from the government to be that sex educator in the classroom for kids as young as grade school. So little kids, to tell them that sex is not a big deal. Sex is some activity that's normal that anybody should do when they're young. So this is sexualizing kids, like little kids, like, 6th grade, 5th grade. And it's trying to rip away the spiritual relational part of sex. Like, that sex is designed to bond two people together. That it's not just about a momentary pleasure. It's about supposed to be a lifelong relationship.
Right.
And it can bring children into the world. I mean, for all the condoms, for all the birth control pills, there are still so many unwanted pregnancies, as they call them, that there's almost 1 million abortions a year. So it's not working.
There's something about it that is a bit oxymoronic. So why would, at the very same time that they're promoting people to have sex, would they also be promoting people to not? They don't want them to have the babies, though. So what?
They do. I mean, I think Planned Parenthood. I think Planned Parenthood has created a market for themselves.
Okay.
Because they are sexualizing kids. First of all, this idea,
you need to get the birth control pill.
Yeah, and by the way, this idea that abstinence, meaning delaying sexual activity or not having sex, is impossible, is a flat out lie. I mean, I'm abstinent. You and I are abstinent right now. I mean, in the studio. And when I'm married, I'm abstinent with anyone else except my husband. I mean, it is a fidelity to just my husband. So we have self-control. We have the power to treat our bodies with respect and responsibility, and to treat other people the same way. And to send the message to kids that they don't, that it's inevitable that they're going to have sex and that they're going to be safe as long as they use a condom or they take birth control, is a complete lie. It does not protect their heart. It does not protect their mind. And it also doesn't protect their body, because at STI, you can still get an STI. You can still get pregnant, even using contraception. In the month before getting an abortion, so women who get abortions, it's about the percentage is about half of women who get an abortion say that they used some form of contraception in the month prior. So it's not like they didn't know about contraception.
Right.
They were on it, or their partner was using it, or something failed. And what happened?
Or they just were enjoying the moment. And the majority of these people are just enjoying the moment, and they're enjoying that moment because they know
you're supposed to enjoy the moment.
They've treated abortion like it's a button. Like, if I get pregnant, oh well, I'll just get rid of the child.
But this idea of safe sex is supposed to be something safe as far as vulnerable, where you can be vulnerable, but it's not supposed to be something where you have to protect yourself from your partner with some latex or with a pill that sterilizes you or shuts down your hormones. How is that really self-giving and feeling vulnerable and free with somebody?
It always freaked me out. Just instinctually always freaked me out, where I would just say, why would any person want to just put hormones in their body every single day? That was an instinct that I had as a child.
And it's suppressing something healthy.
Right.
That's the thing. Fertility is a sign of health. And this is the message I would send to all young women. Your fertility is a sign of health. If you're having really heavy periods or a rough time with something in your cycle, then look at the underlying symptoms. Don't shut down your entire fertility with these pharmaceuticals, with these drugs. That's not going to actually help address the underlying condition, and it's not going to help you be healthy. And it's going to create long-term problems. I mean, I'm so glad you were so against it, because they create fertility problems for women later on.
Something in the back of my head said
cancer,
that. Especially the ones where they insert something in you and you don't get
like
your
an
period
IUD,
for a year.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my girlfriends was going to get this, and I was like, does something not just in the back of your head scream wrong about this? And let me just say, because I do want to normalize this discussion in the sense that I've been very open about the fact that I took a very liberal route to conservatism. So even though I was staunchly against birth control pills, bizarrely, I didn't have this idea about sex as I wanted to be one of the cool kids. And so I lost my virginity when I wasn't too young, but I lost my virginity when I was in high school. And
it was normal. It
it.
was probably seen as like
normal.
In fact, you would be weird if you didn't.
And I regret it. And so that's why this conversation was so interesting to me.
And why? Why? See, that's
why did I regret it?
Yeah. What is that? The heart of that? What's the regret?
Because the person meant absolutely nothing to me, and I was doing it because I wanted to fit in.
Yeah.
I was doing it because this was the normal thing to do, and you were considered weird if you didn't do these sorts of things. So
and that's the culture.
It's not even just peer pressure from your students. It's pure pressure from society. It's everything that you're seeing on TV. It's everything that you're being taught by your teachers. And
it's Planned Parenthood.
I wish I had
sex
waited.
In the classroom.
Now I'm engaged. I wish I had waited. And that's a really sad thing and a weird thing to say now, obviously, because I lived a different lifestyle. But that guilt started creeping up on me before I got engaged, before I met my fiance. I was in a relationship, and I had this conversation where I was like, I think I kind of want to recommit myself back to God. And my boyfriend at the time said, no. Like, if you don't have, and this is when I knew that something was really wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like,
meaning, I love you if you'll have sex with me. That was the message.
That's what I heard, right? And it was, well, everything will fall apart.
That's not love. That is not love.
It's not. Sex is, I think his excuse, what he said to me was, sex is how people connect. Right?
It is, but with someone that you're going to love lifelong and you've given everything to.
Because it's more. It's
more than that, yeah.
You know? And so it's interesting to me that I had this guilt started creeping up on me in my mid-20s, thinking that I had done something really wrong and really terrible, but I had just accepted that that was okay and that's what you were supposed to do to earn the love. Now you'll stay with me, right? Because we're having sex and ultimately it means nothing.
And I think a lot of people, that's why they move in together. It's like the man's not marrying them, right? So they're not down on one knee offering the ring, pledging their life to them lifelong, so that we're going to try it out. Right? Or the woman is even fearing commitment because some issues in her past or fears of commitment. So we're going to move in and try on marriage. We're going to like put it on and see if it fits. That's not going to set you up for success because you're already going in with conditionals. You're already going in ready to walk away.
Right.
You're not going to practice for marriage that way. You're practicing for divorce that way.
Wow.
And the statistics show that. The statistics show that if you cohabitate before marriage, you are more likely to get divorced.
Which is really interesting. So why do you think that we have this culture right now that glorifies, I guess, being non-committal, right? We glorify having multiple Sex in the City. What was that whole show about?
Yeah, it's all about
right. And I loved that show when I was younger. And what they're basically saying is that
cute.
They looked so cute, and they had Fendi bags and Prada shoes, and
they went to brunch all the time.
They went to brunch. What message is that sending to young girls is that this is cool, this is hip, and this is empowering. And we start to emulate that behavior. And now we see these articles, these BuzzFeed and Bustles of, I had a one-night stand and it was amazing and it was great.
And on 10 tips to please your man. Like, it's all about, all these women's magazines, it's all about pleasing. And it's not your man like your husband who's committed to you for life. It's some random dude you happen to be seeing. You're not even dating, you're hanging out with. So, yeah, I mean, it's very toxic. It's toxic for women.
But why?
I think it's the result. I mean, I think a lot. I mean, they're selling tons of product.
Right.
So, I mean, contraceptives is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Contraceptives,
and the whole women's world of like fashion and grooming and everything. I mean, it's a lot of money involved in that. That's not all bad. I mean, I think that can be used for good. But what happened was there was the sexual revolution, which happened after the early feminist movement. The early feminist movement was good. It was about the right to vote. It was about to just have opportunities for education.
Actually, about equality.
Then something really toxic happened. And the sexual revolution happened where it was this upending of what they saw as traditional morality. The reality is traditional morality isn't just traditional, it's natural. It's how we're built, it's how we're made. It's psychologically our desire for commitment and love, our desire for someone who's not going to just walk out the next day. That's built into us. And as women, it's built into our bodies because we can bring life into the world. That takes 9 months. And then you've got a child, and that's 18 years.
Right.
So sex is a big deal, and it should be. But the sexual revolution upended that and said it's not a big deal. It's just a thing you do whenever you want with whomever. It doesn't matter. It's just some pleasure for a moment, and it's totally up to you. You make the rules.
Right.
There's no morality around sex except don't rape, maybe. Maybe that's, and even that, we have a huge crisis with that today, right? But there's no morality around it. It's really what you want it to be. And that sexual revolution agenda, which hijacked the feminist movement. So then they're like, well, now if you're feminist, you're going to be pro-sex without any rules, without any responsibility. And who liked that? Crazy men like Hugh Hefner, that playboy who wanted to sexualize women and make money off of objectifying them, and just to make them happy.
He died unhappy. And I talk about this all the time. I say to people, if you think that you are a modern feminist, like I call that radicalized feminism. We should stop calling it feminism altogether. It's not, because they see how they treat people like you and I, right? Who are talking about real issues. But I always say to people,
and they won't talk about this, by the way.
Oh no, they won't. And they would never welcome us.
They pretend women walk away from a one night stand and they're fine. There's no baggage.
There's shame.
There's no issue.
There's shame, and they don't feel happy about it. And I have girlfriends that make a living out of writing about their sexual deeds with men, and I genuinely feel so sad for them. I feel so sad for them because I say it's not what you want, and it's not what men want. And yet you've let a society convince you that this is normal to pen all of your bad dates, all of your bad sexual experiences, because you probably watched an episode of Carrie Bradshaw in Sex and the City too young. I wanted to be like Carrie Bradshaw. Like I did. And the first thing I ever wanted to do was to be a journalist. And we have this culture that says, yes, more of this. Instagram gives even more birth to this. Social media, where I always say, like, if you want to get a million followers on Instagram, take your top off, do something and say, I'm empowered. Right? This is empowerment to me. And then you have younger generations like Ariana Grande, who I think is miserable, who I think is actually unhappy, who goes out and is talking about in her music about being on top of men and waking up the next morning.
She's objectifying herself.
She's objectifying herself and calling it empowerment.
And she has over 100 million little girls looking at her.
Empowerment. Right?
It's very, very bad. And if you criticize it or you say that's harmful, it's like, well, you're shaming women. It's not to shame. Like, this is not to shame. This is to liberate. This is because we know what makes people happy. It's not you're not going to be happy sleeping with 5 different guys in 5 months. You're not going to be happy divorcing. You're not going to be happy getting an STI. You're not going to be happy getting pregnant unexpectedly or getting an abortion. Like, we know these things don't make people happy.
Right.
So we want people, and we know that sex, and this is the other thing, actually, the studies show, and the Atlantic just did this piece on this 2 weeks ago, these two, and they weren't even pro-life or anything, these women, and they wrote that they do the studies, and this is years of social data, so it's not just their study, it's other studies, that people who are married have the most sex and the best sex. And people who are married and go to religious services at least once a month are even in a better category than the prior category. So what does that say? It says, if you want to be happy, if you want a great sex life, get married.
Right.
And also realize that your marriage is not just something that you contract between the two of you, but that there's a third person in the marriage. Right. There's God who created marriage and who created both of you. And so it's a spiritual thing now. It's a covenant it's a sacrament between each other
and
now.
It's beautiful.
And it's beautiful.
It's really funny because
and that's the good message.
What we're hitting at is something. I tweeted something, my tweets can be a little controversial because I'm always trying to push the world forward a little bit. I poke a little bit because I think that that's the best way to get people to debate and to pay attention to something. And I got into so much trouble. It was months ago. I had a lunch with a girlfriend and she said, we were talking about all these people that are just really crazy, women that are just really crazy and really bitter and really unhappy. And they're making it seem like it's about Trump. It's not about Trump. There's no way anybody has this much time to be this hateful about anyone. Right. And
he's used as a scapegoat.
He is a scapegoat. And what I said was at this lunch, this young woman said to me, for women that don't have children and don't get married, and the expression that she used which got me in trouble was, if they don't use their eggs, they scramble, right? And it obviously is something that pissed a lot of people off. But I think a broader way to say that, which is that we are, like you said, tradition, right? There is something natural about it, right? And when you keep trying to buck the trend and to intentionally not do something that comes natural to you, right? Like, you want to find someone, you want to find a partner, you want to have children, and yet you let society convince you otherwise, you will end up like Kathy Griffin. You will end up like Chelsea Handler. You will end up like Sarah Silverman. I don't mean to call these women out, to make them feel badly. But I wonder if they made different decisions and invited something else into their life,
right,
rather than feminism. If they would be different, if they would be more fulfilled. And yet they look at people like us and think there's something wrong with that. Like, I don't need a man is like the new empowering slogan. Women can do it by themselves.
We're made for each other. Men and women are made for each other.
It's symbiotic.
It's beautiful. It's complementary.
It is.
And it's, I mean, and I think, you know, again, back to the whole thing of shame. I mean, shame is natural to the human person to feel it because we know it triggers when something's wrong, right? And the moral law, which I believe is, there's an absolute moral law that exists. Don't kill, don't rape, don't commit adultery, which is connected to other sexual ethics. And that mirrors a biological reality, the way we're wired psychologically, the way our bodies work. So this, when you say traditional, yes, it's traditional. And like you said, it's natural. These are two things that work together. And that's why all the social data backs up that getting married, waiting before you get married to have sex, getting married, and then having a child, so doing it in that order, is where people are more successful economically, psychologically, they're happier, they're healthier. That is what the data shows.
But you know what I think it is, though, also, and this is why I kind of try to be in the middle here, because when these people say, no, now we have to let people have abortion whenever they want, and they're out screaming and they're fighting for babies to be murdered. You say, where does that come from? Do I think these people are fundamentally evil? No. Yeah. I think they're fighting for something that is fundamentally evil, but we have to ask ourselves why. Why are they fighting for that? And I think what happens is that you make a decision when you're really young because society tells you it's okay and it's normal. And a lot of these people have had abortions, right? A lot of these people, like me, had sex when they were young. And so they think that if they go the other way, they're suddenly become a hypocrite. So they start fighting for something that they don't even believe in anymore. And it's almost incumbent upon people like me, like I wish I had done what you did. Maybe the space for the people like me who didn't wait until they were married is to say to people, I wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled, and I wish I had done what Lila did. And at any moment, you can change your mind. You can recommit. Like when you brought up your husband, you can recommit. And that's just as beautiful as an act, and you can be on the side of goodness.
In many ways, it's more beautiful.
It's more beautiful.
It's like it's having the courage
to make you were wrong.
Change your life. And that's hard. That's hard to do.
It takes a lot of humility. Of humility, and it's not popular, right? This isn't the stuff that's gonna get us on late night TV. That's for sure. They're not gonna be like, oh, what wonderful, talk about chastity.
Well, that can change. We can change all that. I love it. It's like Prager, become the media.
Become the media. Let's create it. Let's make girls want to watch this and have conversations about this and make decisions in their own self. I think the most beautiful thing a woman can do is wait until they're married to have sex. I really do. I admire people that took that route. I wasn't that girl, but I hope that people watch me and hear me talk about that and say, you know what, I still have a chance to make that decision. Or I can turn around and say, you know what, now I'm going to wait until I meet that person. Because when you do meet that person, as you said, there is something so spiritual. It transcends societal expectations, conversations, and you realize that society is doing something really tricky right now.
Yeah. And I think we need to, sex is beautiful, right? And that's why women taking off their shirts on Instagram, they get more followers. I mean, there's something about sex that's just incredibly attractive. I mean, it's the way we're wired. It's the way we create future generations and make the human race continue, right? But I think that's part of the message too. It's like, sex isn't bad. It's like, not that you're not thinking sex is good enough. You're treating sex like it's not good enough, actually. That's the problem. And so I think media has a huge role to play in it. But we can change that. We can change that one step at a time, doing our part to say, look, sex is amazing. Marriage is amazing. Marriage is awesome. I think part of it is that marriage is looked down as not that great, not that fun. That's the ball and chain. You settle down. You can't travel anymore. Kids are going to ruin your life, you know? There's all this negative messaging around marriage and family and kids. And, you know, it's just boring. And that's not true, you know? And that's why, you know, being married now, I'm like, it is awesome. I know we're only 6 months in, but it's a gift. And I know it's hard. It can be challenging, but we're going to work on that. And this is our life project together, and it is, and with God we can do it. Like God can give us the strength.
God, and all of these things that society makes you think is not normal. And I think especially the public school system has really done a number on children, and you literally come out backwards. Like they just send you out into the world backwards. Everything you think you should know. Like you come out being like, yes, abortion is empowering. Don't need a man. Like think about how weird that is. I learned actively in a feminist 101 course in high school that there was something virtuous about hating men. Hating men. What are they trying to create in that classroom? To come out bitter and angry towards the patriarchy and men.
I mean, the messages are sex means nothing. It's just this thing you do. Just make sure it's safe, right? And make sure there's consent. That, you know, putting animosity negativity between the sexes. So like men are out to get me, or women are not to be trusted, or whatever. And then the message that marriage is not, there's no message about marriage. Like marriage couldn't matter. Marriage doesn't even matter.
If it's 5 days, whatever, go to Vegas, undo it.
And then it's totally sterilizing it. It's like this sex is just this biological act, and it's like it shouldn't even be sex education. It should be relationship education. And it shouldn't even be relationship education that some bureaucrat, some government person, or some Planned Parenthood entity is teaching little kids. That should be taught mostly in the family, in the religious community, by the parents. That's something that is about morality and about relationships and about how to live, like how to treat other people. It's not just this biology lesson. It's much more than that.
It is. And so, we're seeing this sort of societal breakdown of family values. Like they don't want family. They hate the nuclear family. They hate the concept of normalcy, right? They'll celebrate a trans, bi, whatever you want to call it, relationship, a man and a woman. They reject it in society. Like you're considered a token of evil. Like that this all needs to be, it's true. This all needs to be destroyed. Yeah. And we need to make men women and women men. And what I see, the reason for that, I think, is because, like you said, the family unit is responsible for instilling values inside of the children. So if you don't want the children to have any values, if you don't want the children to believe in God, if you want the children to believe in government, if you want the children to believe in Hollywood, break down the family first.
It's a threat. So the family, a strong mother, a strong father who love each other, who respect each other, who fought for each other and are committed to each other for life, for having kids, is a threat to a powerful bureaucracy that wants to control everything. It is a threat to the elites who want to sell you products in entertainment or wherever else, who want to control the way that you think and sell you stuff. Right. I mean, it is a threat to that. And I think it's a spiritual thing too. I mean, I'm a Catholic. I believe that there's spiritual powers at work here. And, that's a debate. Anyone could debate on that. But I think that this is a fight for the soul of our country and the soul of the family.
Right.
And so all of these things, abortion, the breakdown of sexuality, the breakdown of marriages, they're a threat against the family. They're a threat against the child.
How do we revamp it, though? How do you revamp it? It's a huge thing. I hope that this plays some really small part in it, right? Because we know that millions will see this and great. But how do we go about changing the radicalization of the education system? Because that's where people are getting radicalized in the school system.
I'm a big advocate of alternate education approaches. So charter schools, private schools, as they can be afforded, homeschooling.
Right. They attach a stigma to that too.
I know. I was blessed to be homeschooled for a lot of my education.
That's why you came out so good. Okay.
But I mean, other people. I mean, one public school can look very different from another, depending where it is, depending on the culture around it, what city it's in, what community it's in. But I think that it comes back to the education system. I think is a product of our families, right? How strong are our families? How present are our families? Is there a mom and a dad at home? Because that's already going to set you up for more success, even if there are negative forces at school. So there's a lot of pieces in play, and I don't have all the solutions as far as the public policy side on education, because that's a complex conversation. We could do 10 podcasts on that, interview 10 experts, but I think it comes back to one person at a time. I believe one person choosing to put their trust in a power higher than themselves, to give their life up for something bigger than themselves.
Right.
Not just about me, but about self-gift. And that's what, I mean, going back to sex, it's about self-gift. It's giving to you because I love you. In my marriage, I'm giving myself for my husband. He's giving himself for me. That's at the core of what it means to be human, is self-gift.
Right.
That's what ennobles us and makes us our ability to sacrifice for each other,
right.
Our ability to love. So I think as a cultural change, our society needs to recognize there's absolute truths, absolute moralities that we need to acknowledge and say that they're good. They're not there to limit us and hurt us. They're there to set us free so that we can then love. We can love each other and treat each other as we're meant to treat each other and be loved the way we're meant to be loved. That's the end message.
Right. And it's so interesting that you say that, because right now we live in a climate where narcissism is celebrated. Yeah. It's encouraged at every turn. Narcissism is encouraged, right? That's what Instagram's all about, right?
Yeah, well, they're making money.
Clicks,
I mean, the tech companies make money.
How many likes can I get? How many people can see me? What is abortion if not the ultimate narcissism? Where you say, not only did I get to enjoy myself, but I've decided that my life is way too valuable to be inconvenienced by another child. That is narcissism, right?
Yeah,
where it's all about you and nobody else ever. And that's why we're seeing this rejection of God in society. Even some of my very conservative followers followers, I love to read the comments and get feedback. They'll say, oh, I love this, I believe in this, but I wish we'd stay away from, the God conversation. And I always want to rebut and say, what bothers you about the fact that somebody is giving themselves to a higher power?
Right.
Have you ever met anybody that's deeply religious that completely offended you, right? Because they believe in what? Family, right? They want to live their life according to the Bible, or the Torah. Like what is it about that you instantly reject about God is a better question.
Right. And you can go I'm not going to talk about God. I'll just talk about the social data, the outcomes, and that all backs up these moral things we're talking about.
Right.
But look, even our Declaration of Independence references a creator who endowed us with certain inalienable rights.
All of our money. In God we trust.
In God we trust. And there's a reason for that. Because if there's not a higher power, if there's not a higher authority, where is it at? Government decides. They can change what our rights are. They can change what the dignity of the person means. It's all relative. It doesn't matter. You can't have a society that has justice and love in it that way.
Government becomes God.
Yes.
They don't realize
that's
the moment that you reject God, you actually are accepting government.
Yeah.
And that's why in all of these communist and socialist societies like that, I mean, think about what the tenets of communism was really about. No God. It's just us. And that's a sad society to live in, whether you believe in God or not. And an important question to ask an atheist is, do you hope you're wrong? Do you hope you're wrong? Do you hope that there's something beyond this? Because if you hope you're right and you hope that there's nothing left in this, that's a scary society to live in.
Yeah. And there's a lot of evidence for the existence of God, but at the end of the day, it comes down to a choice of, do I want to trust that there's order to the universe? There's a lot of evidence for it, right? Order of the universe, the design of the universe, the design of like our bodies, how they're made to have children, our relationship with men, all these things we're talking about have an order in the universe as they have an order in the moral law. But do we want to put our trust that this is a good thing, that this is something that's going to help us if we are obedient to these moral realities, which is not, again, like, chains around our wrists. It helps us to be free because we avoid making bad choices.
Right.
We avoid choosing things that take away our happiness and create division in relationships, division between our own bodies, our own children in the womb. I mean, that's what abortion is, this ultimate division. I don't want you.
Right.
I'm against my body and the child in my body.
Right.
And so do we want to trust that this higher power is good and loving and just, and that if we can say yes to these laws, we will actually be more free and more who we're meant to be.
Right.
And that's Christianity. That's what, I became Catholic in college because I did a lot of study, a lot of research. I was like, do I believe in any religion? Am I a Muslim? Am I a Mormon? Am I, whatever, Buddhism? I studied all these different religions. And I came to first the historical reality of Christ. 2,000 years ago, entered human history. It's never been the same. He came and fulfilled all of these prophecies of Judaism. And he came and said he was God and died for us and then rose again for us and totally transformed civilization afterwards. So Western civilization afterwards was never the same.
That's
the
correct.
Respect for women, the respect for children, the respect for people seen as equal in dignity before God. Those are Christian, Judeo-Christian ideals.
Right. And those are under threat right now.
And those are under threat. But that's beautiful. That's good.
Right. It is beautiful.
That's freedom. Like, that's good news. That's a good
freedom
message.
Freedom is an interesting word because here is something that I've realized, and you do have to credit the left in terms of the brilliancy behind what they've been able to do in society, because they did it so quietly, like a thief in the night. They've managed to somehow sell things as freedom that are in fact bondage, right? So I completed about a year and a half of not drinking last year. And it was just that. It was just that the thing that they tell you is freedom, right? Go out, drink, party, have sex, do this and that. In the end, it starts to feel like bondage, and you become this person that's not happy. So how is it freedom? Just because you took a picture, you don't remember what happened last night. That's kind of a scary thing, right? You don't remember what happened last night. And they've managed to, via the media and via the education system and via the destruction of the family unit, sell people their own demise.
Yeah,
I mean, literal salt to a slug.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. They've taken the language, and they did this with abortion. I mean, you see choice. Reproductive empowerment, these terms used to mask straight up murder, killing a human life who's totally innocent and trying to just grow. And they put these positive terms on it. And it is completely false.
Right, because liberalism sounds better than conservatism.
Right. I mean,
right?
Nobody even knows. I think most people today who would think they're liberal, they're not actually liberal. I mean, the extreme progressivism that's taken root in kind of mainstream, a lot of the Democratic Party, especially on abortion and things like marriage, it is not I think, traditional liberalism. So that's a whole other conversation.
Classical liberalism, which you and I both know, Dave.
I know.
Yeah, and he talks about that.
Yeah, but you're right. They take words and they literally make them mean the opposite. So freedom is now sex anywhere, anytime, sex completely drunk, like you said, this, like the hookup culture, that was the sexual revolution, right? We're sexually free now. No, you're actually enslaving yourself.
You're enslaved.
You're enslaving yourself. And then abortion versus choice, right? This is empowerment. This is women's rights. Those are great sounding words. Right. I'm for choice. I'm for women's empowerment. I'm for women's rights. I'm a woman. I'm for human rights. But taking the life of a child in the womb who is completely defenseless, and as a mother, surrendering your body to an abortionist to have them destroy that child, that is not empowerment.
Right.
It's an act of violence, of lethal violence. So what have they done? I mean, if you can take the language, you can take the mind. Right. If you can go into the language and mess up the language and distort the language, then you can distort the thoughts. And so it is so important, like you're saying, we have to take back the language here.
We do.
This is not choice.
They're programming
this is not
us,
freedom.
and they're programming us really young, and they
have
the ability to do it because they know that, especially in these one-parent homes, the parents don't have time to look over their children's homework when they get home. The parents don't have time, and that it all feeds into one another, where you break down the family, and now the teachers are in control, and they can feed you whatever they want. So whoever is telling that children when they are that young that sex, you can pick your gender, you can have sex whenever you want, you can do whatever you want, this is normal. They in many ways are creating minds, and then in turn creating a society, which is where we've ended up today, which is really radical. But I have to say this, and let me know if you agree, I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic. I think that we went really far left, and in the process, a lot of people woke up, and I was one of those people who woke up and said, whoa, not that liberal. Are you optimistic, cautiously optimistic, pessimistic? How do you feel?
Yeah, I'm extremely hopeful. I think that we're not made for this. Human beings are not made for these ideologies that are harmful, that really enslave and brutalize each other. We were made for love. We were made to want to walk justly. We were made to walk justly with God. I mean, that's how God wanted us to be originally when he created us. And I think that there are many people out there that are waking up because it's hurting them. They're hurt. People are not happy. I mean, even that study on sex, they're not happy, and they're having all the sex, supposedly can have all the sex, there's no laws about it anymore.
Right.
And they're not happy.
Right.
So I think that one person at a time, there's awakenings that are happening. I think there's a lot of cultural work being done by nonprofits and families and churches, Prager, Live Action, trying to change the narrative on this, educate, help people connect the dots on it. And then just people, one at a time. I mean, the power of your marriage, when you get married, the power of your marriage, the power of your love is going to be an example to other people.
Right.
And when you have kids, that's going to be in the way you love your kids, that's going to be an example. And that it's a good thing. Marriage and children are good.
And you have a podcast coming out.
Yes. And I'll be talking about all of this and more.
What's it called?
It's called Lila Rose Podcast.
Lila Rose Podcast. Yeah. Great. Well, I would love to be a guest.
Yes. Yeah. I would love to have
I'm inviting myself.
No, please come on.
Because we have to give each other platforms. Yeah. We need to give these young girls that are questioning themselves. And I just remember being young. I was saying to you before we started this, and I'm so happy my 20s are over. I turned 30, and I'm so happy because I just remember being wrought with insecurity and not knowing what was right and what was wrong, but pretending I was so happy. Yeah. And now I feel settled, and it's because of all of these conservative tenets. It's because of marriage. It's because I know what my life is going to, and it's because I know that I'm on the side of goodness. Yes. That I'm on the side of goodness. I'm fighting for lives, right? I'm fighting for people to be who they are in their natural state and not what society tells them is going to make them happy.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So it really is a blessing. Do you have any, by the way, are we able to talk about your news?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Of course, yeah. It's a baby now. So yes. I'm 6 weeks pregnant.
Which is so exciting.
Yes. Yeah, we're thrilled. I was telling Candace earlier, I'm like, I might feel like I have to throw up during this interview. Right. It's really bad morning sickness. But
congratulations. Yeah, honestly, I mean, I'm thrilled too, because I'm just like, somebody with your more morality should have 20 children. Oh. I really do believe that.
Well, I'm 30, so we'll see. I don't know. 20 might not be in the cards.
Get it up. Twins, triplets,
we'll work
tuplets.
hard on it.
Yeah, exactly. So we wrap up every episode by letting you leave one message to the world. So you're going to look at the camera. Okay. We're going to put 2 minutes. You can use all the 2 minutes or less than. And if you could have one message fall upon the ears of every single person in society, what would it be? Lila Rose, 2 minutes. On your mark, get set, go.
God created each of us for love, to love and to be loved. He is love. God is a God of love. And the work I've been involved in to stop abortion is because I think I know every person is created in God's image and likeness. You are created in his image and likeness. I am. He loves us. And he loves us so much that he himself came down to earth to die for us and to give his life for us because of our sin, because of our pain. And he wants us to be free eternally and have eternal joy with him. So no matter where you are, no matter what you've done in your life, no matter what's happening in your life, there's a beautiful plan that God has. He created you for a purpose. He created you with beauty and with purpose and with meaning. And there is a beautiful plan that he has. And that's why I'm fighting for every single child. That's why we have to fight for every single child, because God created them with that purpose, and fight for each other because each of us are in his image and each of us, we have a plan and something that he is calling us to do.
That was so great. So great. Thank you so much for coming
Candace.
on.
Thanks for having me. Great conversation.
Such an interesting conversation.
It's good.
And it's fun. Thank you guys for watching the latest episode of The Candace Owens Show. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. As many of you guys already know, PragerU is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, which means we need your help to keep all of our content free to the public. Please consider making a tax-deductible donation today. I would really appreciate your support.